Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Kramer, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at the University of Colorado Boulder's Leeds School of Business. Welcome to our second quarterly Leeds Professional Development webinar of 2023. We are so excited to be here with you today. Leeds is a top business school offering undergraduate, MBA, executive MBA, MS, and PhD programs, and has an alumni network of over 41,000 strong, living and working around the world. For today's professional development webinar, we're excited to welcome Deborah Jason, who is here presenting Creating a Rockstar LinkedIn Profile. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, if you have any questions now or during the presentation that you would like to ask Deborah, please send a question through the Q&A interface. We will monitor questions as they are submitted, and Deborah will respond to them at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, for optimum audio quality, we do have everyone on mute except for myself and our speaker. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please notify us through the chat interface, and one of our support specialists will touch base. Lastly, a link to access the webinar recording will be sent to all registrants tomorrow, along with the survey link and supplemental resources from today's presentation. Now, I'm excited to introduce today's speaker. An alumna of the University of Colorado's Graduate School and a former faculty member of the Leeds School of Business, Deborah Jason is a national speaker, marketing mentor, and the author of the award-winning book, Millionaire Marketing on a Shoestring Budget. From business owners and engineers to real estate agents and speakers, Deborah has guided hundreds of professionals in creating robust and optimized LinkedIn profiles that help them open the doors to receiving more opportunities on the network. Welcome, Deborah, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to hand the webinar over to you now.
Thank you, Amanda. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Thank you for coming here today. We're going to jump right in. These days, especially in the last 3 years, with all the craziness that we've had, people are doing their due diligence before they ever meet you, whether they're meeting you in person or virtually. That puts you in a position to win or lose based on what they find on your LinkedIn profile and your activity there. Because LinkedIn gives you opportunities to demonstrate that you're an industry expert, to build your thought leadership as a trusted voice in your industry. And my favorite is to enable deeper engagement with your professional community. This isn't just about people who can hire you or people that can retain your services if you have your own business. It's about connecting with people who can be referral resources or partners with you as well. It's about getting engaged. You'll hear me say this quite a bit. And I know one of the questions that somebody had that they submitted before the program was, is there too much or too little engagement? How do you measure? LinkedIn is about engagement. It's about building and nurturing relationships. This is Bob Berg. If you have ever read the Go Giver series that he co-authored with John David Mann, they talk about something that I call the KLT factor. If you know what the KLT factor is, it stands for know, like, and trust. And in their book, they say all things being equal, people do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust. But I take it up a couple of levels. When they know you, like you, and trust you, then they refer you, or they retain you, or they hire your services. So keep that in mind. When you have a complete LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn says that you open the doors to opportunities. You're 40 times more likely to receive opportunities through the network. Now, they say a complete profile. I call it a robust and optimized profile because many people think theirs is complete, but it's not quite there. And that's what we're going to go over today. So before we get started, I'm assuming that many of you have a LinkedIn profile. And if that's the case, I want you to rate it. You should see a poll on your screen. And I want you to rate your profile as it exists today on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being boring, 2 being mediocre, 3, it's pretty good, 4, it's good, and 5 is I'm a rock star. So go ahead and rate your profile on the poll that you see on your screen. And then Danny will let us know what the results of that profile are. So here it is. 45% of you say your profile is mediocre. I'm not surprised because that's probably why you're here today. So we're going to resolve that because we're going to go over, you can drop that poll. Actually, I think I can close it here on my end. There we go. We're going to go over mistakes that people make on LinkedIn. The good news is if you're already on LinkedIn and you think your profile is mediocre, you can go back and you can fix these mistakes if you've made them. And if you're just starting, let's say you've never done a LinkedIn profile, you can avoid these mistakes. Now, this is a game show, so you're all going to participate, and you're going to say whether what I show you is fact or fiction. I'm going to put up a slide, and we're going to go through the mistakes that people make using these slides as demonstrations. So the first one is fact or fiction. LinkedIn profiles with photos get 78 times more views. So I want you to write down whether it's fact or fiction. And Amanda, I'm not sure, I don't see a chat. If there's a chat function, can they type their answers in there, or is it just the Q&A function?
Yes, there is a chat function enabled today, so those listening can feel free to chat their response in the chat box.
Okay, so if you're seeing that, would you tell me if people are typing fact or fiction? LinkedIn profiles with photos get 78 times more views. Fact or fiction?
We are seeing fact.
Okay, well, this is a trick question. So the first answer is actually fiction, but let me explain why. The mistake that people make is not having a profile photo. And in today's day and age, you might go, oh, everyone has one, but they don't. Here's an example of a colleague who's a speaker, and they have a beautiful banner photo, but they don't have a profile photo. The correct statistic is LinkedIn profiles with photos get 14 to 21 times more views, not 78 times more views. So make sure you have a good profile photo on your LinkedIn profile. Fact or fiction number 2. It only takes 100 milliseconds for someone to form an impression of you just by looking at your photo. Fact or fiction? Oh, now I'm seeing somebody in the chat saying fact, fact, fact. Awesome. So yes, it is a fact. And 80 to 90% of that first impression is based on 2 qualities. They're looking at your photo and saying, are you trustworthy and are you competent? Are you trustworthy and are you competent? So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your profile photo. Still talking about photos, fact or fiction? This is actually a real profile photo on somebody's LinkedIn profile. Fact or fiction? I'm seeing fact, fact. Many people get this right because they go, oh my God, that's so crazy. That's got to be real. And it is. This is actually somebody's profile photo on their LinkedIn, their professional profile. But my question is this. I want you to write down in the chat, what do you think this person does for a living? Are they an actor, an accountant, a comedian, a hack? Okay, a couple of people saying hacker, actor, hacker, collecting welfare, comedian, somebody said a spy. Well, this person is actually, are you ready? A certified public accountant. Now, my dad, may he rest in peace, was a certified public accountant. And if he saw his profession portrayed this way, he would turn over in his grave. Why this person has this photo, I'm not really sure. But the point is, you want to convey a professional image. So we're not going to go over all these. These are all real LinkedIn photos. I want you to we're going to do 1 or 2 quickly. The little boy in the upper left-hand corner. What do you think that person does for a living? It's the boy with the little blue background behind him. Daycare, plays, show and tell. Yeah, so here's the thing. that picture, that person's profile, that person is not, that would be interesting, a preschool teacher, but that person is actually an eye doctor. He's not even a pediatric eye doctor, and the little boy doesn't have glasses on. Maybe he's wearing contacts, but that's not what we mean by a professional photo. Now, for those of you who said that little boy, the person's profession was a daycare or a preschool teacher, the baby down on the bottom, that person is a daycare provider. But I want to ask you this. If you were doing your due diligence about someone who's going to take care of your kids, wouldn't you want to see a picture of them and not a picture of a baby, right? So agreed. Yes, thank you, Christopher. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the image you want to portray. Does your image portray that you are trustworthy and competent? Next one, fact or fiction. This is about keywords. The use of keyword phrases are only important on a website. Don't need to worry about them on your LinkedIn profile. Fact or fiction? I'm seeing fiction, fiction, lots of people saying fiction. And yes, indeed, it is fiction. I'm looking at some of my notes because before today's webinar, some people submitted questions. And one of the questions kind of relates to keyword phrases. The mistake that people make is that they don't use them. So in this image, I have whited out the person's name for privacy. But underneath your name on your LinkedIn profile is what's called a professional headline. And this person had that they were the owner of the ABC Day Spa. Owner and founder are not keyword phrases unless you are looking for somebody who's an angel investor to find you, or somebody who might buy your business. They might be searching for owners and founders. I want you to think about, what would somebody search if they don't know your name, they don't know your company, or let's say you're looking for work? What would be the talent or the skills that they would be searching to find somebody like you? Okay, that's what you want to think about, and use those keyword phrases in your profile. So that's how you can be relevant without being annoying. That was one of the questions, is how do you stand out to recruiters on LinkedIn, and how do you be relevant without being annoying? Use keyword phrases so that if they're searching for somebody with your talents and skills, hopefully if you've used those, and this is not about stuffing your profile with keywords, it's using them where they are appropriate. Fact or fiction? So if you have on your LinkedIn profile, you have a job description under your current work experience, you don't need to worry about what's called the about section. Fact or fiction? I'm seeing fiction, fiction, fiction. And thank you to all of you who are participating. Fact, fiction, fiction. Okay, so the answer here is fiction. So this is an example of somebody's experience section on their LinkedIn profile. They have filled out their job title, keynote speaker, and they've written a job description. But that is different than your about section. Many people forget about it or don't complete it. And one of the questions that was submitted before we started today was, what's the ideal way to word your about tab? Well, the about section is a little bit about you and then how you help people. But I want to stop on this slide for a second, because this slide actually demonstrates 3 points. This was my client, Angela. I do one-on-one LinkedIn consults. And when we started to work together, she did not have an about section. That was the first mistake. But you'll also notice this was an older profile. In the background, she had what was called the Constellation banner. That is valuable real estate. Put an image back there, but you don't just put an image. Put contact information, whether it's a website, an email, a phone number. It's valuable real estate. Some people do have beautiful photos there, but when someone goes to your profile, it's really easy for them to see how to reach out to you if you have that in your banner. It's not clickable, it's not a hyperlink, but it's easy to see. So that's one thing I want to point out on Angela's profile. The other thing is, when we worked together, Angela in her name field said Angela Gaffney, keynote speaker, corporate wellness. Those are some good keyword phrases, but according to LinkedIn, your name field should be your name. Okay, it's LinkedIn's terms. They say it can be your name and PhD, or your name and CPA, or MA for Master of Arts, but your name field should be your name. Underneath your name is what's called the professional headline. At that time, Angela had the Daily Essentials Cookbook Collection Breakfast. Well, if she wanted to be found for breakfast cookbooks, that might have been good for her, but she really wanted to be found as a keynote speaker. So keep those things in mind, and we'll go over them as we continue to go. So as I said, here's Angela's after profile when we worked together. You can see she took the banner, she put her URL, her email, and her phone number. Very easy to see when you get to her profile. Then in her professional headline, you see her name field is just her name. In her professional headline, she no longer said she's a keynote speaker. She's a wellness keynote speaker. So be specific with your keyword phrases, okay? Other keywords she had were nutrition, stress management, work-life balance. Now, she added an about section. So the about section, several points to remember. You have 2,600 characters, not words. Please do not write one really, really, really long paragraph. Make it short paragraphs so that it's easy to read. Do not use just bullet points. You can use bullet points, but not just bullet points because that's not conversational. And remember I said LinkedIn's about engagement. So you want to do this. Angela, as you can see, said a little bit about her. So for example, she's a wellness expert, keyword phrase, and a catalyst for healthy transformation. Then she said something about how she helps busy professionals. She helps them achieve health while excelling in their careers. The next line you could see, she survived a health crisis that nearly took her life. That's a little bit about her. And then she said now she empowers others with wellness, keyword phrase for her, wellness strategies to achieve health, manage stress, and create balance in life. And if you keep reading, you see she uses work-life balance and stress management keyword phrases in her about section where it's appropriate. So keep that in mind. Short paragraphs, 2,600 characters, not words, and then keyword phrases, a little bit about you, and then how you help others. And for those of you who have submitted questions saying you're looking for jobs or you want recruiters to find you, and you haven't had a job in a while, then share with how you can help. Think of yourself, so to speak, as the product. And if someone were to hire you, how could you help them? What would be the benefits of them hiring you? Something that highlights your skills, your talents, and your area of expertise. So fact or fiction, the next one is about customizing your LinkedIn URL. When you do it, it helps your profile show up higher in a browser search results. Fact or fiction? I see fact. Fiction. Fact, fiction. Okay, we have a mixture here. Some fiction, somebody that doesn't know, that's okay. Fact, fact. So it is a fact. When you sign up for LinkedIn, you get a URL that looks like what you see on the left. It's linkedin.com/pub/your name and a bunch of numbers. You want to customize it so that it's linkedin.com/in/your name. When you go to LinkedIn to do this, again, this is your personal profile, so you want to use your name. When you submit your name, you hit the save button. If your name is not taken, LinkedIn will say, okay, you're set. If your name is taken, so let's say Deborah Jason was already taken, I could do Deborah A. Jason, use my middle initial, or D.A. Jason. Try to stick with something close to your name, not something cute and funny, not a keyword phrase, but your name, because it is your personal profile. Then when you've done that, if someone were to search you on Bing or Safari or Chrome, your profile is likely to show up higher in a browser's search results by customizing your LinkedIn URL. So real quickly, we're not done, but the first 4 mistakes are not having a photo on your LinkedIn profile, not optimizing your profile for keyword phrases, not completing your about section, and then not customizing your LinkedIn URL. So let's continue. Fact or fiction? All you have to do is create a LinkedIn profile and people will automatically interact with you. Fact or fiction? I see fiction, fiction, fiction. Somebody says fact, fact with a laugh. Fiction, it is fiction. So the mistake that people make with LinkedIn, it's kind of like joining a chamber of commerce or maybe even your alumni club. You don't just pay your dues and then sit back and say, what are you going to do for me? You need to get engaged. Okay, remember I said one of the opportunities on LinkedIn is building deeper engagement with your professional community. So if you're in business and you're thinking, well, I have to make sales, it's not always about connecting with people that might give you the sale. It's not always about connecting with people who might hire you. It's about connecting with people that will help you build your professional network. They could be someone who buys from you or hires you, but they could be someone who refers you business or partners with you. So keep that in mind. You want to get engaged. And I'm looking because there was a question about how much engagement is too much or too little. Here's what I say. You can never engage too much unless what you're doing is pitching. So I have a hashtag, ditch the pitch. But when you engage with people, that helps you build and nurture relationships. Too little engagement would mean you put up a profile and you do nothing, or you post something on LinkedIn, somebody responds to you, but then you don't respond to them. Or you post a comment on somebody's profile and they respond to you and then you don't respond to them. Remember, it's having conversations, it's nurturing relationships. So I don't think there's too much you can do to engage too much, but there are ways that you can do too little. Here's what I'm going to suggest you do. In LinkedIn, you can go to your settings and privacy and download just your connections. The reason I want you to do this is many people have a lot of connections and they probably haven't reviewed them in a while and they go, who's Deborah Jason? And I mean your one-on-one connections. That's what this, you'll get an Excel spreadsheet and you can say, oh, Deborah Jason, you know, she's a speaker and she does LinkedIn marketing and I'm having a conference. I could probably hire her. So you go and you reconnect with her. Different than me saying, oh, I haven't been in touch with Amanda in a while. Let me reach out to Amanda and say, can you hire me? Can you hire me? Will you hire me? You want to do it in a way that promotes conversation. Ditch the pitch, remember. So when you download your connections, you'll see on this slide, LinkedIn says request your archive. Your download will be ready in about 10 minutes. So LinkedIn will notify you and say, hey, now you can open up this spreadsheet and see who are your current connections, your first connections on LinkedIn, and review those. And I'm going to show you a slide later about somebody who did that and the results that they had. Fact or fiction, okay? Skills that you want to be endorsed for on LinkedIn are a waste of time. Fact or fiction? Listing skills that you want to be endorsed for is a waste of time on LinkedIn. I'm seeing one that says fact, fiction, 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 fact. So there was a point in time, it is a mistake that people make. It's fiction, but there was a point in time when LinkedIn would pop up a window and say, do you want to endorse Deborah for Microsoft Word? And people would say, sure. Well, Christopher says it doesn't seem too worthwhile, though, and I'll explain why it is worthwhile, because this next slide, the mistake people make is not having skills posted on their LinkedIn profile, skills they want to be endorsed for. Because when you do, you'll see this. LinkedIn says if you have at least 5 skills listed, you'll get a 17% increase in your profile views. If you have at least 5 or more skills listed, you're contacted more often. To me, the more important part about having your skills is that it builds social proof. So for those of you who are looking for work, if you have skills listed and people have endorsed you for those skills, it builds social proof for that talent, for that it shows credibility and authority for what it is that you do. So that's what makes skills important. It adds credibility. Now, this is something LinkedIn started doing about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. They will add, well, let me take a step back. When you go to your experience section, if you have added skills to your skills section, LinkedIn will say, well, which of these skills, you have LinkedIn marketing, Deborah, as a skill, which of your jobs does that apply to? And as you see on this slide, LinkedIn has added, I haven't put this up with my job experience. LinkedIn, when I click on my skills, says, oh, Deborah, that applies to your copywriting job. That applies to your speaking job. So you go into your skills section and tell LinkedIn which job experiences that are on your profile do those skills refer to. And somebody said, how many skills should you add on your previous work experience? So LinkedIn, by the way, likes you to have at least 2 jobs posted on your profile. So your current and your past experience. When you fill out your skills, as I said, LinkedIn will say, well, which jobs does this apply to? So put them in whichever jobs it applies to. Okay, it's always being realistic, always being authentic. Now, skills are different than recommendations. This is Angela, who I worked with one-on-one. After we did that work, she wrote a recommendation on my LinkedIn profile. A couple of things to keep in mind. You have to be connected one-on-one to receive a recommendation or give a recommendation. If you are connected, you could automatically go to that connection and write a recommendation. It does not show up on their profile automatically. They get a notification. So if you recommended me, I would get notified by LinkedIn that Amanda wrote a recommendation for you. I can then approve it and it will show up on my LinkedIn profile, or I can hide it. Okay. As you can see, this is a written testimonial, very different than just having a skill posted on your profile that somebody pushes a button and endorses the skill. So keep that in mind. Skills and recommendations are 2 different things. If you want to request a recommendation from somebody, you have to be connected, and then you go to their profile and there's a little button, usually it says more. And if you click on that, there's a drop-down menu and you can request a recommendation. Okay. Fact or fiction, moving forward. If someone you don't know sends you a connection request on LinkedIn, you should ignore that invitation. Fact or fiction? Fiction, 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 fiction. Awesome, I'm glad to see that. Well, both depending on who they are. That's a good point. So I want you to type in the chat, do you receive LinkedIn requests from people you don't know? Just type in yes if you do. I'm guessing they're quite, yes, 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 yes. So all of us just about get requests from people you don't know. So before I show you the next slide, yeah, Will, all the time, what do you do when you get those requests from people you don't know? Type in the chat. I assess, I leave them in the request box, I ignore them. Click on their name and look them up. Awesome. Search their profile. Perfect, Carrie. So that's what I want to share with you. So the mistake that people make is ignoring invitations. Okay. And Catherine has also said you assess and determine if it makes sense. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Anna says if we have a common employer, you might accept them. So this is my colleague Vivica. She also has spoken a lot about LinkedIn, and we say be sensible. Okay, that person who's reaching out might be a good connection for you. And some of you have said in the chat, what I want you to do, go to their profile first. Okay, don't ignore their invitation, don't accept it. Go to their profile first and check them out, because they could be a good gatekeeper for you if you're looking for work. They could be a good referral, they could be a good partner. But here's what I suggest. When you're in your LinkedIn profile, at the top navigation bar, there's something that says My Network. If you click on that, you'll see all the invitations you've received that maybe you haven't responded to. I think somebody posted that in the chat, that they just leave them in there. So you can reply to these. Don't ignore them, don't accept. If you hit where you see the little red arrow, you hit and see all your invitations, then there's a little button that says message this person. This is how you start to engage. This is how you start a conversation. And here's the template I suggest that you use. You send this person a message and you say, Danny, thanks so much for reaching out on LinkedIn. but I'm curious, were you referred to me or were you simply searching LinkedIn? It helps me to know how people connect with me. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Have a nice day, Deborah, and I send it. Then I wait and see how they respond. If they don't respond at all, I ignore the message. If they come back with a pitch, remember, ditch the pitch, I might respond, but I also might delete the message. But many times they will respond and say, oh, Deborah, I attended your LinkedIn program through the Leeds School of Business, and I just want to stay in touch with you. Well, now we can have a conversation. And most likely I will then accept that person's request. So keep that in mind. When you get an invitation from someone you don't know, don't ignore it, don't accept it. Go to their profile, check them out, send them a message. Fact or fiction number 10. The biggest mistake professionals make on LinkedIn is treating it like a dating site. Fact or fiction? Fiction, fiction, fact. Fiction, fact. Okay, we have a mixture here. So this is kind of a trick question, but it is fiction. So I've been on LinkedIn. Yes, do people do this? Anna asked. So Anna, for 20 years probably I've been on LinkedIn, and only twice has this happened to me when two people, and they basically said a similar thing. They sent me a request. I looked at their profile and they looked legitimate. But when I messaged them, both of them came back with a response that said, Deborah, I'm a widower and I have 3 children, and I'm looking for a wife and a mother for my kids to help with my kids. So for those of you who are on dating sites, that was a quick swipe left. But on LinkedIn, you don't swipe. So I just wrote to them and said, this is not a dating site, and I deleted it. So it does happen. It's not the biggest mistake that people make on LinkedIn. And sadly, it's happening a lot more on other social platforms as well. We're not quite done yet, but before we move on, I want to offer you a free checklist. This is a 10-point checklist that serves as a reminder to assist you in creating a robust and optimized profile. Daniela has put the link in the chat box so that you can access it easily. It's rightdirection.com, LinkedIn 10-point checklist with dashes in between each word. So before we finish, the question is, what is the biggest mistake? So I want you to type in the chat, what do you think the biggest mistake is that people make on LinkedIn? I'm sure some lying about experience, easy apply, creating a profile and then ignoring it, not completing their profile, not including the picture, not being active. These are all great responses. Waiting for people to reach out to you instead of reaching out to others. They do not leverage the capabilities, that's for sure. Providing false information. There are some fake profiles out there. It's not as rampant as it was once it was. Exaggerating or lying. These are all great answers, and they're all mistakes that people make. But my colleagues and I who talk about LinkedIn often say that one of the biggest mistakes people make is from the very beginning, not personalizing your connection request. So whenever you want to connect with somebody, and this is somebody maybe that you don't know well. So if it's, if it's your best friend, then if you send off a request, they'll probably know it's you. But if you don't know this person really well, let's say you met at a conference, they may not remember you. Or if you're attending today's program and you send me a request without personalizing it, my apologies, but I may not know everyone who's attending today. So just take a quick moment. By the way, always go to a person's profile to make a connection request. Don't hit any of the buttons where you see this person viewed that profile or this person may not. Always go to a person's profile, hit connect from there. You'll get this message that you see on the screen, which is write a personalized request. You're more likely to have your invitation accepted. And it can be short and it should be short and sweet, and it's not a pitch. Okay, it should be, Deborah, I heard you speak about LinkedIn for the Leeds School. I want to stay in touch with you. If you're on mobile, it's a little different. Still go to the person's profile, but you're going to click on the little button that has 3 dots. And sometimes the little button says more. When you do that, you'll see on the right side of the screen, you get a drop-down menu and it says Personalize Invite. Okay, I've had many people say to me, oh, sorry, I couldn't personalize it. I did it from my phone. You can personalize it, whether it's from your phone or your tablet. First, go to their profile. Don't click connect. Click on the three dots so you get the drop-down message. Now, this is not what I mean by a personalized message. I want you to read this slide and tell me, how does this make you feel? This is a message I got from someone. If you got this message, what do you think about it? It says, Deborah, I make marketing funnels for small and medium business owners. You look very busy, though I can help you grow when you're ready. My new service using LinkedIn is a great place to start. Yes, Andy says pitch, ignore. This is, to me, Andy, I agree. Looks like they're selling to you. Yes, Sierra, I agree. This to me is not a personalized connection request. This to me is a pitch. So I say ditch the pitch. Okay. The other thing is this gentleman says he could help me with using LinkedIn. If he looked at my profile, he'd see that I do LinkedIn marketing. And if he's using LinkedIn, you could see his professional headline says founder of, so he's not even optimizing his profile. So this is not what I mean by a connection request that's personalized. Ditch the pitch. So how do you avoid all these mistakes that we talked about? Include a professional looking photo. It doesn't have to be taken by a professional, but it should look professional. Many of you, most everyone these days has a phone, okay? Please, I'm going to refer to dating sites again. And sorry, men, but there are those guys who pointed up their nose and take a photo, or they stand in the mirror with their shirt off and take a photo. Please don't do that. I have a client who I said he needed a new photo. He took his wedding photo with his bride and cropped her out. That's not a professional photo, unless maybe, you rent tuxedos for a living. I have a client who's a professional chef. His photo is him in his white coat in a professional kitchen with fruits and vegetables, totally appropriate for him. So make sure that you take your phone, put on something nice, stand with a nice background behind it, and have somebody take a photo for you. Okay. Include keyword phrases in your profile. There are 5 places. Again, this is not about stuffing. So I want you to think about if someone were to search for you, but they don't know your name, they don't know your company if you have a business, what are the skills, what are the talents they might be searching for to find someone like you? Those places that you put your keywords, the 5 places are in your professional headline, which is right under your name, in your about section, in your current experience, in your past experience, and in your skills section. Okay. Now, in your current and your past experience, there's actually 2 places to put keyword phrases. One is your job title. Many people go, I have to use the job title that was given to me when I got my job. You don't. You can make it keyword enhanced. Okay. This is not about lying, but you can make it keyword enhanced. For example, my friends who are keynote speakers, I tell them don't just use keynote speaker as your job title. Use your specific area of expertise. Wellness keynote speaker, diversity keynote speaker. If you're a project manager, are you an IT project manager? So keep those things in mind. Complete your about section. Remember, 2,600 characters. Write it in the first person. Then don't forget short paragraphs. You can use bullet points, but not just bullet points. You want it to be conversational, a little bit about you, and then how you help people. Customize that LinkedIn URL. Get involved and engage, okay? Have conversations with people. Engagement means you can like someone's post, you can comment on their post, you can share their post. If you're going to comment, do something that has some substance. So it depends what the post is. If someone said, I just got promoted, well, you could say congratulations, but you might say congratulations and then tag that person. So congratulations, Deborah. You'll do a great job at that new company and name the company. And then if they respond, comment back so you have a conversation. If you share a post, don't just share it. Take a tip or a pointer from that post and write your own little comment, and then share the post. Again, that's how you engage. List specific skills you want to be endorsed for. Okay, so as I mentioned, if you're a project manager, are you an IT project manager? If you're in real estate, do you focus on Boulder, Colorado? So be specific. Don't ignore those invitations to connect. Visit the person's profile and then send them a message and start a conversation. And last but not least, when you reach out to someone to connect, send them a personalized connection request. And remember, always go to their profile first, whether it's on your phone or your tablet or your desktop. Now, let me share some results with you. So here are some things that people have done on LinkedIn and how it's turned out for them. Sharing valuable content is very, very important. I'm looking at the questions and somebody said to me, what tips do you have for keeping content fresh and interesting? So what's your area of interest? This person was a contractor in Arizona and he wanted to build his list of vendors. So he was sharing valuable content that related to that industry. Some of it was his own content. So you can write 5 tips on how to build a home ecologically, or 5 tips for preventing fires in your home. But he could also, or you could also share somebody else's post. So you don't feel like you always have to write your own post. But again, when you share somebody else's post or somebody else's article, be sure you put in your own comment first. Like, here's 5 tips that I read about, and number 3 really resonated with me. What do you think? And then share it with your following. This person connected with a former colleague. Okay, so remember I said earlier, download your connections. Go look at your connections, and maybe there's someone you haven't been in touch with a while. Now, they did not reach out to their colleague and say, hey, I'm a financial advisor. Can you give me some business? They started to have a conversation, and within 3 weeks, that person referred them to somebody. This person was a financial advisor, and he won that account. So that was by connecting with a former colleague. Then you have the choice to connect with alumni. You're all here with Lead School alumni, with CU Boulder alumni. Connect with them or reconnect with them. And that means you might already be a one-on-one connection, but you haven't had a conversation. You haven't engaged with them. So reach out. Again, this person didn't reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for business. He reached out and said, well, we haven't been in touch in a while. Tell me what you're up to. Now, that might seem like it could lead into a pitch, but depending how you lead your conversation, it could be that you talk about, oh my God, I'm living in Colorado. I like to ski. That can eventually lead to a referral, can lead to business. And I want to sort of sidestep for a second. I think we have some time. LinkedIn will tell you, it's somebody's birthday. And I've had many people say, oh, I don't want to spend the time to go say happy birthday. That's a Facebook thing. It could be, yes, but I will tell you this. I have a colleague who used to live in Boulder. She moved to Florida. We started to connect and converse on LinkedIn. One day I messaged her happy birthday. And what happened then was she referred me to somebody. She said, oh, thanks for the birthday wishes. By the way, I know this woman who heads this conference and you should probably speak there. And she referred me. So don't discount some of the things that you can do on LinkedIn by connecting. This person, Cliff, is a real estate agent, and he said LinkedIn has really helped him and his success. If you keep reading this, you'll see he says the more interaction you have, the more you grow your business and grow yourself. So he's met many people just by using LinkedIn, building your network, nurturing relationships. Dawn is a fellow speaker, and she said a prospect found her on LinkedIn several years ago, and they're still a client today. She has booked webinars. She does programs about Microsoft. She's a Microsoft certified trainer. So she's done a series of webinars after an association president followed her on LinkedIn. First, they found her on Twitter, but they followed her on LinkedIn, and then they reached out to her. She said another prospect searched LinkedIn and found her and hired her to create videos all around Microsoft. She does Microsoft PowerPoint and Excel, various topics. So these are some of the results that people have gotten using LinkedIn. So now that we've gone through all this, I want you to rate your LinkedIn profile again. Would you rate it higher than you did before, lower than you did before? How would you rate your LinkedIn profile after listening to today's program? 1 being boring, 5 being a rock star. And then Danny, there we go. So earlier, I think 45 of you said yours was mediocre. Now 40 are saying it's mediocre. 29% saying pretty good. And before, I think we had 0 rock stars, and now we have 4%. So that's awesome. So my next question is, what's one thing, just one change you're going to make to maximize your LinkedIn profile? Maybe that's you're going to put up a banner on your profile with your contact information. Maybe you're going to review your keyword phrases. Many people I have discovered haven't optimized their LinkedIn URL. Somebody said they're going to use the about section. Someone said a better banner, a better photo, increase your engagement with others' posts, keyword phrases. Awesome. These are all good. Keywords and engagement. Look at your skills and your URL. These are all terrific. So I encourage you to take one step, okay? All while it's fresh in your mind, just take one step to get started. And then take some time. For those of you who are saying you want to write a better about section, a recommendation I have is to do it in a Word document first. That way you can make all your tweaks and changes and you'll have it saved somewhere, then copy and paste it and put it into your LinkedIn profile. I do one-on-one LinkedIn consultations. These days, most of the time they're on Zoom. And we sit down and we go over your profile. We talk about your engagement. We talk about keyword phrases. There is an investment for it. I usually charge $250 an hour, and I offer 2 hours for $400. But for those of you who are on today's call, if you email me within the next week, you can get the one-on-one LinkedIn consultations up to 2 hours for $150 savings. So it's going to be $250 instead of $400. So you see my email there, Deborah@rightdirection.com. And that's if you want a one-on-one LinkedIn. This is Keith, who said after 2 hours working with me, he was able to accomplish more than he was able to do on his own in 6 months. So that's just a little tip, a little pointer. If you need some help, many people get off the call and they go, oh, wait, I don't know if I can do this all on my own. I don't do the work for you. So we do review your profile. We talk about your keyword phrases. And if that's of interest to you, please feel free to reach out. Here is the free LinkedIn checklist once again, rightdirection.com, LinkedIn the number 10 point checklist. And by the way, this is a URL, a QR code that LinkedIn generates for you. You can only generate it using a mobile device. When you go to LinkedIn, go up to your profile and look at the search. You'll see a funny little symbol there. That's your LinkedIn QR code. So this takes people to my LinkedIn profile. So we've covered a lot. And I think quite a few questions that were submitted to me ahead of time. We have gone over those, but we do have time for some questions. Danny or Amanda, have you seen anything posted in the Q&A?
Yes, we have questions coming in, Deborah. Let's start here. First question from an anonymous attendee. What is your opinion on showing advanced degrees alongside your name?
I do it. If you go to my profile, it says Deborah A. Jason comma, I think, MA for my Master of Arts. And actually, somebody convinced me to do that. For the longest time, I was like, nah. And someone said, hey, you spent a lot of time and energy getting that degree. You should put it in there. LinkedIn does allow that, okay? So you'll see my colleagues who are speaking professionals have their certifications in there, or association execs that have certifications, meeting professionals have certifications. So yes, I would say feel free to put, I'm John Doe, comma, MA, or John Doe, PhD. Those things are fine, and they are okay as far as LinkedIn's terms.
Okay, great to know. Thank you for that. Thomas is asking, does it cost extra to customize your URL?
No. Everything that I shared with you today, you can do in the free version of LinkedIn. Okay, so it does not cost you anything to customize your LinkedIn URL.
Great. Thank you for that. Another anonymous attendee asked, is paying for LinkedIn Premium worthwhile?
So what I tell people about that is first, to whoever asked that question, are you actually using LinkedIn right now, the free version? If you're not using it yet and you're not really making the most of it as a free version, why would you pay for the premium version? The benefit of the premium version is when you have the free version of LinkedIn, you can see who has viewed your profile. It's maybe the last 5 people. With the premium version, you're not limited to 5 people, and you're not limited to how long I think you can view them. Now, for those people who are prospecting, you might say, oh, Deborah Jason viewed my profile, and I should message her and say, hey, Deborah, I noticed you viewed my profile. Is there something I can help you with? So that's assuming that people are using their profiles in a public mode. There are ways to set your settings so that people don't see that you're viewing their profiles. However, LinkedIn is about connecting. So, unless you're doing some research and you don't want your competitors maybe to see that you've looked at their profiles, you always want to kind of keep it in your public mode.
Thank you for that, Deborah. The next question here comes from Will, who asks, I am hesitant to include my phone number and email in the banner section. I already get spam from LinkedIn, but at least it's going through LinkedIn. If I put my contact info in there, I'm afraid it will give them direct access to me.
Well, it will. Um, and that is a concern. I totally get it. On my LinkedIn profile, I have my phone number in there. I don't have my email on my banner. It's in my contact information, but I will tell you that, and there is a button for your contact information. I'm not talking about my banner. So to be honest with you, my phone number is on my LinkedIn profile. I've yet to been spammed with phone calls. If people click on the button on my profile that says contact information, it does give an email address for me. And sometimes there's spam in there. Sadly, it's part of today's technology. But if you're on LinkedIn because you want to connect with people. So, I understand the concern. It's a valid concern. Maybe you don't want to include your phone number and your email. You want to include one or the other. But it depends what your objective is also for being on LinkedIn. And for most people, it's for connecting. It's not always for people looking for jobs. For a lot of people, it's about making sales. So, there's a balance. I think you have to weigh what feels the most comfortable for you.
Thank you, Deborah. The next question is from Scott, who asks, how do I make it clear that I'm job searching for those out there that are looking to potentially hire?
I hesitate with that question because there is something on LinkedIn that says, open to, I forget what the phrase is.
Mhm.
You can make it clear. You can say you're open to opportunities, I think might be what the button is. But you can say in your about section, if you want, I am open to opportunities doing XYZ, and use keyword phrases. But the other option, as I mentioned earlier, is without saying, I'm looking for a job, you can share what your talents and your skills are in such a way that if a recruiter is searching, hopefully they come across it. One other thing you can do with those people that you do know, like, and trust, that you are connected to on LinkedIn, is you can share with them privately and say, hey, Bob, I see you work at IBM, for lack of another one. I'm looking for a new position doing XYZ. Is it possible you have any connections that I can reach out to? Again, that's doing it with people you know, like, and trust. I'm not talking about reaching out to strangers who happen to have a job title that you think, ooh, I want to work for them. But to that point, if there is somebody that you see on LinkedIn that you think, I want to work for that company, go follow that person as opposed to connecting with them. Follow them and see what they're posting and engage with them. So when you follow someone, you can engage with them. It's different than connecting to them. But then they'll start to see that you're commenting, that you're sharing things. And at some point, if you feel like you've built or started to build a relationship, then you can reach out with a connection request, have a conversation there. And maybe you can then get to the point where you say, Joe, I've been following your posts for a while. I always like what you share about this particular topic. And I'm curious, I've been looking for a position in that area. Is there anything available at your company? But again, many people want a quick fix on LinkedIn and on anything really. It takes time. It takes time to develop those relationships. And I know for people who are searching for work, if they're out of work, it can be very frustrating, but it could be very valuable if you take the time to nurture that relationship.
Thank you. And taking a look at the time, Deborah, we'll go with two more questions and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
So the next question is from Lori, who says, how much is too much when entering past and current work experiences and skills? And this relates to a question from Brianna as well, which is key distinctions between the LinkedIn profile experience section and resume. So if you could address that, Deborah, that would be great.
Okay. So the LinkedIn experience section is a lot like your resume. Okay. Because one thing I want to make sure, I don't know if I mentioned it, your about section should be different than what you say in your experience section. So your about section is a little bit about you and how you help people. Your experience section should share what achievements, what accomplishments did you have in that particular job. Now, to the first part of the question, which was how much should I share about my past experience? If it relates to keyword phrases, I would keep it in there. So I can't remember exactly how many jobs I have on my LinkedIn profile, but it goes kind of far back because one of my keyword phrases is about copywriting and being someone who writes marketing copy. And one of my jobs many years ago was being a junior copywriter. So I keep it in there. I may not have as much detail in there as I do for my current work because I've had my business as a copywriter now for 30 plus years. So I say when you're looking at your current and your past experience, to measure how much you should include, look at, well, what are my keyword phrases and can I make all these relate? Okay, again, where it's appropriate to the keyword phrases I want to be found for. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you, Deborah. And then the last question is from Daniel, who says, as a consultant, is it more powerful to post from my individual LinkedIn profile or my business page?
So thank you for re-asking that question because I did have that down on the questions you submitted to me earlier.
Oh,
My
great.
take about personal profiles and company pages. So let me clarify. On LinkedIn, you can have one personal profile and you can have a company page. Now, as a consultant, I take a look. If you have both, if you have a personal profile and a company page, how many people are engaging with your company page? My guess is not many because LinkedIn is about one-on-one personal connection. So I'm guessing you get more comments, more engagement when you post on your personal profile. The companies that have company pages that I see get a lot of engagement are well-known associations or well-known companies. I've spoken for a group called the International Spa Association. They post a lot and they get a lot of engagement. But personally, my opinion is if you're a consultant, posting on your personal profile gets you more engagement than posting on a company page, unless you're with a large, well-known company.
Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us for today's presentation. And thank you again, Deborah, for this great information. At this time, we invite you to provide your feedback on the webinar by answering the following poll question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this webinar to a friend or fellow Leeds alumni? We thank you in advance for submitting your feedback. As a reminder, all webinar attendees will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording of this presentation as well as a survey. To view upcoming webinars as well as previous recordings, please visit our website at colorado.edu/business/alumni. We look forward to our next professional development webinar, which will be next quarter. But in the meantime, catch our just-in-time webinar next Thursday as Leeds Professor Sanjay Bhagat addresses the Silicon Valley Bank demise, causes, and the path forward. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your time and go Buffs.